Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's Tour Catch-Up,
Novak Djokovic dumped out in quickest clay court loss.
Dominic Thiem announces his retirement from tennis.
And Andy Murray is set to return to the tour for the French Open.
Kim, Chris, today is the 13th of May and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. We are halfway through the Italian Open in Rome and there has been drama aplenty, led by Novak Djokovic continuing his out-of-sorts form and getting a bump on the head from an errant water bottle. With Dominic Thiem as well announcing his retirement from the tour at the end of the season. Camila Giorgi also appearing to retire for tax reasons, as well as Andy Murray announcing his earlier than expected returns plans. It's another action-packed catch-up at Tennis Weekly HQ, and there is, of course, only one place that we can begin, guys. It's the Eurovision Song Contest.
Not Rome tennis. It's all about Eurovision. It's been the number one trending topic.
You've been itching to talk about it, Kim.
Yeah, I mean, I wish this was just a Eurovision weekly podcast, but there we go. Along with the Northern Lights, I think Eurovision was like the dominant thing from the weekend, but it was quite a controversial Eurovision, wasn't it, this year?
My friends just kept going outside during the Eurovision just to like look up at the sky to try and see the Northern Lights.
It was a category 5 something, I believe. And in Denmark, it was supposed to be even stronger. And I missed it when I was in the UK. So
I didn't see anything. Yeah,
I didn't see it. No, I didn't realise it was due. So I went to bed the first night and then woke up to all these pictures and then, yeah, couldn't see anything the second night. So.
And some of my friends who are very bad at taking pictures, they even got pictures. So it must have been really wonderful.
Yeah. And I was wondering, though, because obviously Switzerland won Eurovision. I thought it was quite ironic that, very much historically neutral country won the event in a very divided year.
First ever winners, Kim, of the Eurovision Song
What
Contest.
about Celine Dion?
They've definitely won before, Joel.
Yeah, first ever winners. Look, first
they won the first ever
winners
one.
Back in, 19...
sorry.
I
Yeah.
thought you meant it was the first
they
time
won
they
it for the first
won.
time.
It's like this is...
No, Kim, I'm an expert on Eurovision as well here.
I thought you were going to...
I learnt it in a pub
like
quiz
it's
like 2
Djokovic's
weeks ago.
first time winning Wimbledon.
I was wondering if they would get Roger Federer involved when they're hosting next year. Because Novak Djokovic was involved in 2008 when it was hosted in Belgrade.
I could see that.
He featured in the semi-finals.
I think he'd have that wonderful sort of Swiss humour attached to it. I think he scrubs up well. He's a fan of pop music. Ellie Goulding is his favourite.
She'd be the interval act if he was production manager.
Could you represent us? Get us a few more points next year.
Well, we might need her to turn it around for the UK. But yeah, that was sort of my non-tennis highlight of the week. Going back to tennis, and I did just mention Novak Djokovic, there was an interesting incident with Djokovic this week where, unfortunately, he was hit by a water bottle from a fan as he came off the court. I think it was a total accident.
A metallic water bottle, not just
bag.
A plastic bottle.
Yeah.
It looked like it hurt.
I mean, he went down and stayed down for quite a while, so maybe he wasn't sure what this was. Was it the start of some, concerted attack? But I think it was just an accident. And fortunately, he said later on social media he was fine. But I love how he responded the next day because he came into the tournament wearing a bicycle helmet on his head as a bit of a, I guess, protective measure and a bit of a joke, which I just thought, I loved his sense of humour in that moment. I thought that was iconic from Djokovic there.
It was particularly funny because there was no one above him at that point. He was just signing autographs on the ground with a bike.
Yeah, it was all
maybe
like level playing field. Yeah,
might have fallen out the sky or something. You never know.
But did he bike in? Maybe.
Know.
Who knows? Conspiracy theory. It could have just been that. He took a Vespa.
Maybe he forgot that his helmet was on whilst driving in on his
and
Vespa.
then he was unintentionally the meme of the tournament.
Yeah.
Well, what's got your highlight reels alive and kicking this past week, Joel? What about you?
Well, mine was, I know we were all mourning the loss of Sissi Dossa last week, and I was looking and I scrolled on social media. I actually didn't even know they were a married couple. Anastasia Potapova and Alexander Shevchenko are husband and wife, and they recreated an iconic photo of Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck in the film Roman Holiday, and it is them on a scooter. Is it a Vespa? My cultural.
It is.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. Classic.
Okay, there you go. On a Vespa, and I just thought it was quite nice. I just thought it was quite
I've
a nice
got
photo. They're at the
one
tennis.
question.
It's quite staged.
Why? Is this promoting the event? Must be.
I think they just loved the film, and I think Potapova maybe was just like, let's create a photo shoot out of it. However, I will say they're not wearing helmets. Did Novak Djokovic steal the helmets from the casting?
Well, they're doing a
wardrobe?
great job of looking like they're going quickly, but there is a stand get down in the picture. So
maybe they're making their play for being the new it couple in tennis.
were Badosa lined up for this, and then they had to drag in someone else. You
yes, and they were like, "Oh my god, we need another
Did
couple."
Jem's life
I
pass
know.
on it? You know, Katie Boulter, the
Yeah.
early exit meant that
Everyone passed on it, and it was like, right, who've we got left? yes, Potapova, Shevchenko.
I think it's a nice touch. It's been a while since I've seen that film, but I think, it adds a touch of glamour to the proceedings. So I'm quite a fan of that. I think they should maybe do that more often around the world at tennis tournaments, should there be similar opportunities. I don't know if there's been many famous films that have come out of certain tournaments, but I'm sure, at least with Rome you can do it. But Chris, what's got your eye this past week on the tennis circuit?
Well, talking of a touch of glamour, everyone's favourite fashionista, Yelena Ostapenko, has caught my attention, not just for her outfits on the court, but because I actually have never seen this before. I was watching her match, which went on for an awfully long time against Cerebras Tormo, which is no surprise to us in that sense. But what caught my eye was that there was an error placement map. So, you normally see like the winners or where the serve goes, service placement. This is all of the balls that she hit outside of the court or into the net, which I've never seen because I've never seen the balls at the point they hit the net. And you can't tell much from it, apart from the fact that she doesn't miss long and down the middle. It seems to be that she is swinging for both sides. But, Joel, I think you also shared the mid-match error count, that she hit 69
Crazy.
unforced errors in that match. And her opponent hit 10. And she won it because she hit 72 winners. So it was won and it was lost on her racket. But I just thought the fact that they had done an error placement map was pretty savage, because obviously they could have done a win. There were 72 winners to also plot the placement of. So is this a conspiracy against Ostapenko, or is this just a bit of fun?
I just love that. Must be one of the biggest mismatches in terms of winners to unforced errors, like between opponents. It's just like it's just chalk and cheese.
I was literally about to say chalk and cheese, yeah. And I mean, it was a 3-set match, wasn't it?
That's also their nicknames on the tour.
We normally see Cerebras
Ostapenko the
Tormo,
chalk.
who was the opponent in this case, going long, playing for hours on end. So, ironic really that it was with her. But yeah, Ostapenko definitely making the play there, but coming through, whatever gets you over the finish line, hey? And she certainly did that. So
she's
lived
playing for
to fight
her.
another day.
I think she's playing for a top 10 ranking actually this week, because she won today, and I think she's defending semi-final points from last year. So there's a lot on the line there. So she's fighting hard.
Live ranking, she is in 10. So she's battled her way up there, because it's very close with Kasatkina, who also went out. You're right, Joel. So the errors may be coming, but so are the wins.
Yes. Well, let's have a look at what has been happening in the draws out in Rome. Let's start with the men. I mean, apart from Djokovic getting hit by the water bottle, there has actually been action on the court, on the match court. But unfortunately for Djokovic, he hasn't had an awful lot of action this tournament, because he lost yesterday in the third round to Alejandro Tabilo 6-2, 6-3 in just over an hour. It's the quickest loss he's ever had on a clay court, I do believe, and definitely not something that we saw coming. Tabilo was the number 29 seed. His obviously the biggest win of his career. It's the first time he was playing a top 5 player. I think even he will be shocked at how it ended and how it went down. But what was the story of this match? Very, very surprising from Djokovic. Joel?
Yeah, I mean, Djokovic was completely out of sorts throughout the match. To me, he looked like a player who just did not want to be there. I don't know if he was still feeling kind of the after effects of being hit by quite a heavy bottle, in the previous night, but he just did not look himself. And again, there was an opponent on the other side of the net who was just ready to take full advantage of it. Tabilo has been in great form over the last few weeks. I think he won a challenger on the tour. He's just not a player you want to play against on a clay court. And yeah, Djokovic looked like he just wanted to get off as quick as possible. And the fact that it was such a short match, so comprehensive, suggests to me that he didn't want to be there and he had other places to be.
Do you think any of it could be due to that possible head injury from the water bottle? Do you think that had any part to play?
It's tough to know, and I know that Djokovic has spoken about that and saying to the words of he didn't feel like himself, and I completely kind of understand that, because that bottle did look heavy, regardless if it was an accident or not. But at the same time, I mean, Kim, you spoke about the fact that he was wearing a bicycle helmet and making light of it, like the next day, signing autographs, playing it off as nothing happened. To me, there's a bit of mixed signals there. And I don't know if that was a bit of kidology, with his competitors. But when I saw that, I just kind of thought, it was a moment. Yes, it probably hurt. Yes, it was unfortunate, but we move on. However, having said that and seeing the result, maybe there was a bit of a lasting impact.
And Chris, Tabilo, of all players, could you have seen this one coming at all? Like, even if, Djokovic had been playing much more like, how we would expect, do you think Tabilo is someone that we should be looking out for as a, bit of an up-and-coming player?
Well, I mean, he's put together some good results this year. He does play his best tennis on clay, but this is far and above any result that we've seen from him so far. He's taken the odd set of very highly ranked players, like he took a set of, I think, Dimitrov in Miami, and he pushed Taylor Fritz to a tie-break in Indian Wells. So he has been having some decent results, even outside of clay, where he did have a final in Chile where he lost to Baez in 3 sets. So he's definitely on the up when it comes to his all-court game. But I mean, to say that anyone could have expected this, I think that would be a stretch too far. But I think what is more surprising than the level that Tabilo was able to produce on the day was actually the fact that Novak Djokovic couldn't produce anything like the level that we've seen. It was really quite lackluster. And I mean, he hit 12 unforced errors. It was very clean for Tabilo with just 4 unforced errors, but he just wasn't hitting winners either. He only hit 14 winners to his opponent's 22. So it's a case where it's very strained. The serve wasn't working. He had 0 breakpoint chances for the second time this year, also in that semi-final with Jannik Sinner in Australia. And it just feels like Novak Djokovic isn't playing great tennis this year.
I don't understand, because I honestly thought he'd almost hit rock bottom like already in his season, and it was kind of like, right, there's a reset coming, the clay swing is here, we're gonna see the Novak Djokovic of old. That just hasn't happened, and it actually feels like in Rome it's got even worse. We've gone from bad to worse.
From bad to worse,
and
yeah.
I want to ask you both, where do you think this leaves him going into the French Open? Because at the start of the year we were talking about, is he going to win? He's going to win all 4. He's going to win Olympic gold. I'm struggling to see him not even as a favourite, but maybe even a contender at the moment, given some of the losses he's had recently.
Well, we both predicted him to win in Rome, didn't we, Kim? So I don't think I'm going to predict him to win at the French, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I think it's probably not the pick right now.
I think given his history, though, we've not written him off, but we've had doubts before going into it when he's not had maybe the best run up.
But we haven't seen him play this worse before. I would counter that.
Yeah, but I just think great champions do dig it out when they absolutely need to. And I think if he can get some decent opening rounds at the French, play his way into form there, especially given that some of his main opponents also aren't necessarily going to be at their strongest, I think that will maybe help Djokovic. I mean, I don't know. I still consider him a contender for sure, given who he is. But I think, getting his best results this season have been semi-final at Australian Open, semi-final at Monte Carlo, but he's got a 12-5 overall record. In other years, we've not seen him, lose 5 matches all year. So it's certainly probably his worst start to a season ever, could we say?
It does seem like that. I mean, maybe he is human after all, but I was going to ask the question about motivation, because I feel like normally we see Djokovic rebound full of almost like a renewed energy to take on the young guns or whoever has just beaten him and prove his point. And I feel like maybe it takes a slam at this point in Djokovic's career to really have the highest level of motivation. And Australia, if we take that for what it was potentially an off day, and he hasn't necessarily had too many on days since. But do you think that the Olympics, for example, Paris and Wimbledon, and the chance to add more slams will actually mean that rather than maybe not put up the best fight that he ever has done in his career to try and stay in, Rome or another tournament Monte Carlo, he had a semi-final showing, but some of the other results he's had, maybe that's when he really will dig deep and then the champion's quality will come through. But for me, it didn't look like he really wanted to come away with the Rome title.
No, I don't think so. And I think just looking back, at the Australian Open when he lost to Jannik Sinner, I don't even think he conjured like a break point in that match. And I sort of look back on that and wonder if that took the wind out of his sails. I think going into the season, he would have had very high motivation levels and thought maybe, this is a year I can do, more historic things. But I think that loss to Sinner has had big, impact, I think, on him and has taken the wind out of his sails a little bit. And arguably maybe he's not even recovered from it yet. And it feels like now we are at a point where the only thing that is going to motivate him is winning Grand Slam titles and getting further in front of Rafa and Roger, for example. But even for Novak Djokovic, I'm just not sure you can turn up at rock bottom, zero form and go on to win after 2 weeks of best of 5 set tennis against people who've seen your form over the last few weeks and are going to be thinking, this guy's there for the taking.
Yeah, people don't have the same sort of fear that they might have previously had. They'll have a bit more confidence in coming up against him. A few players getting their first ever win over him, this year. And I mean, yeah, it will be really, really intriguing as a story, Novak Djokovic at Roland Garros. And yeah, much more interesting perhaps than previous renditions where we kind of just assume it will be a walk in the park, especially in those early rounds. So definitely on upset alert watch, I suppose, for the early rounds there.
I feel like the whole of the top 8 seeds in the men's draw are on upset alert, because it is, I mean, we say it every episode, but it is just so open, isn't it? With injuries, players not playing, Sinner, Alcaraz. I mean, Daniel Medvedev's making a late charge. It just feels like there's just so many pretenders and actually, we've now got no clear favourite. I think, going into the clay swing, we were thinking, Djokovic is going to be a favourite, Sinner's going to be a favourite, Alcaraz is going to be a favourite. And actually, I'd actually say now we've sort of just got one big pack that anyone could come from.
I mean, going back to Rome, we've got a very, very open top half left on the men's side of the draw, because Casper Ruud has also stuttered his way out. Madrid and Rome has not really gone according to schedule for him. But we've got, I mean, from the sort of top half, I suppose Zverev and Fritz and Dimitrov are the kind of ones left in, maybe Khachanov, but we've got, Tabilo, Montero, Zhang, Nuno, Borges, just names you wouldn't necessarily have put in there. So, I mean, who's impressed you from kind of who we do have in that side of the draw, and who do you think is going to be the one to make the most of this open section?
Well, I think we all know who Joel is going to say, and I'm not going to say it.
No, I'm not. I'm going to say Clayla Fritz.
Oh, clever.
Okay.
I'm here all night.
See what you did there. But I mean, you're right. He is playing pretty well now, and he is improving significantly. I think from that lot, you'd have to say he is the form player on clay so far this season, which is something I didn't think I'd be saying. But I've been very impressed with Montero in terms of his game. I did not think that he'd be putting together some of these results and kind of backing up that Tsitsipas upset that he had earlier in the season. Kind of thought that was a bit of a surprise win, as opposed to it being a sign of something more. But very impressed there. I think it's very hard to back up a big win over a player like Djokovic. And at the same time, Zverev, he hasn't really kind of done much on the tour so far this season. He's had obviously some good results at slams over the last year. And then the Hamburg points will be coming up a little bit later to defend. But he's not winning every week on the tour like he has done previously. So very open. And I reckon Fritz probably actually is.
He's the favourite. I'd arguably say he's the favourite to get to the final at this point from the top half.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I mean, and in the bottom half, I guess the main event from the bottom half was, this is the half that Rafa was in, but he did come up against Hubert Hurkacz in the second round, and he did get beaten.
What is it about Hurkacz facing like legendary players on their favoured court surface and just, sorry Kim, I'm going to have to say it, just absolutely dismantling them?
6-1, 6-3 it was. It was not great from Rafa there. Sort of just, likely to be his last time playing here, and bowing out in the second round, I'm sure isn't the way the way he would have wanted to have gone. But Hurkacz, to give him his due, he was the better player and got the job done. It was close that first game. I think Hurkacz had to cling on and save like 5 break points, and you thought, oh, okay, maybe it'll be a bit closer. But then, 6-1 in that first set, it was not to be.
It wasn't all bad though, Kim. I have to say, from the numbers side of things, I think the only negative really is the fact that he did convert 0 of 7 break points. I think it is one where the more that you play, the better you get at picking the return. And when you have a serve like Hurkacz, it's not hard, but not easy to pick it. It seemed like maybe he was just a bit slow off the mark in that respect. But, I mean, we're a few weeks into the clay season. He was building up to Madrid. Is this a bit of a knock, or do we expect some good days and bad days as Rafa kind of tries to reclaim some of his form heading into Paris?
Yeah, I mean, he said that he aims to be in Roland Garros and try his best. He said he does have some physical issues, but he's going to kind of, do what he can to be at Roland Garros, but he just doesn't know how he's necessarily going to feel from day to day. So let's hope he is there. But yeah, I guess if he's got to weigh it up maybe closer to the time as to how he really is feeling, based on what we've seen from him, Barcelona, Madrid, Rome. I really don't have high expectations, but it would be, of course, lovely to see him play at Roland Garros and at least have like the send-off that obviously he would be absolutely deserved. And I'm sure they've got lots planned for that send-off, so I'm sure the tournament would be counting on him to be there.
He just doesn't want to face Hubert Hurkacz, I think, at Roland Garros. And maybe Hubert Hurkacz doesn't want to face Rafa Nadal at Roland Garros. But I mean, Kim, I did read. Do you know who the last player was who beat Nadal for the loss of so many few games on a clay court?
Oh, I've got a guess.
Any ideas?
Is it a top
Quiz for the
not
first
Djokovic,
half?
is it? It'll be someone else.
I thought it was Schwartzman. Schwartzman had a good result.
We're going
against
way
him, didn't he?
back.
Way back.
A very quick clue for you.
Ferrero?
2003.
Oh.
Gonzalez?
Right continent, Chris.
Lepenti.
Gaston Gaudio.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. Doesn't happen very often, but
21 years.
Again, it just shows that Djokovic, Nadal, they're fallible at the moment. They are, dare I say, time is catching up.
Yeah. Well,
time has caught up.
Time has caught up, yeah. In the bottom half, therefore, of Rome, we do have Tsitsipas is still going. Alex de Minaur, who beat Felix Auger-Aliassime. We've got Medvedev, as you said. We've got Holger Rune and Sebastian Baez. Nicholas Jarry, did he make it through? Yeah. Tommy Paul. So, I mean, is there anyone from that list that you think might go all the way or at least make the final?
Well, you're hoping Alex de Minaur does, Joel. I think he was your prediction for the final. So,
I mean, he beat Felix Auger-Aliassime, I think, for the first time. First time ever in a head-to-head. But yeah, it's a little bit more. There's a few more pretenders. I feel like the Tsitsipas is maybe the front runner. However, I don't like saying that because I don't know if you saw earlier in the week. He absolutely leathered some advertising behind him on the court. Literally within like the first game being on the tennis court, and it just I don't know. It just was a bit like, what are you doing?
he's going through a breakup, Joel.
I know he's leaving it out on the court. Okay.
Yeah, part of me thinks that maybe she was quite a positive, kind of different influence in his camp rather than his family. So maybe all is not necessarily well just because some of the results have improved. Some of those demons might still be there. But I'd say he's playing very well. He's been pretty convincing. I think also whoever comes through the Baez versus Runa match, I think they're one set all at the moment. They're playing live. I think that could be very interesting. But I'm hoping Medvedev makes it because then my predictions look a little bit less shoddy. But Hurkacz, I mean, he's looking very good coming through against Echeverry. It's tough to pick this side.
I would just say, because Madrid was so wild for the men, I'm going to be backing a Tommy Paul versus Taylor Fritz All-American final in Rome.
Wow, that would be quite exciting. It would be Americans on European clay.
Our Madrid Open champion, Andrei Rublev, lost to Alexandre Muller as well. But I imagine recuperating still from that illness. So it's not a surprise there from Rublev. I mean, let's look at the women's side of the draw because I guess on the other side of things, it's been pretty consistent. We've still got kind of quite a few of the big names still in it, like Swiatek, Coco Gauff. Who's impressed you from the women's side? Because, I mean, one player I wanted to mention was Naomi Osaka has had a good few wins here. It's probably been her most encouraging week back, perhaps, since she returned to the tour. Although she has lost in the fourth round to Qinwen Zheng just today. But I think, nevertheless, an encouraging result, a few results from Osaka, especially on clay, which we know is not her best surface.
I think it's been very promising, and I think it's good to see because we have had moments from Osaka where you can see that she has lost her face previously on clay, and I think it's good to see that we talked about Nadal building. I think Osaka's building, and I think clay's actually helping her when it comes to the returns and the serves coming in a bit slower. She's got more time on the ball. I think she's moving better, and I think, Kim, you predicted that she would come away with gold in Paris later in the year. And maybe there's a slight chance that she could do something. I think a medal might have been a better prediction there, but a great win over Kasatkina, and really kind of showing that she's probably got the most form we've ever seen her on clay coming into the French.
See, I knew she had more to prove on clay. This is the signs I wanted
more
to see.
More to give as well, yeah.
Another interesting point with this match against Zheng is that Wim Fissette, who is coaching Osaka, previously, coached Zheng and kind of left her to go back to Osaka. So do you think that was the right move from Wim Fissette? Or who would you want to be coaching right now if you were him?
It's tough.
It's certainly interesting, isn't it?
I think you should have stayed.
Do you? I think you have to go, the connection and the years he had with Naomi and the success. I think there's obviously a natural draw there. I think the way that he handled it probably would be the issue. I think he said, and Zheng said that literally just after a match, he said that he likes to have a connection with his person he's coaching. And he said there is none between us, sort of thing. And then immediately sort of ditched her for Osaka when Osaka mentioned the comeback. So I think that is not great on his part. But I do think what's very classy is that Zheng's been very open about it, but she did say that she has a lot of respect for Naomi for coming back as a mother, as a woman, as an athlete. And so she is very, very impressed by her and only had positive words to say afterwards. So I think showing the results on the court is probably the best way to highlight that Wim definitely lost a very, very talented player, and I'm sure a partnership that could have been very positive, but she doesn't need him to do well by herself.
Well, another player who's having a pretty decent week so far is Coco Gauff, who really hasn't been in the greatest of form on the clay so far, but had a very interesting matchup with Paula Badosa this week. Today, in fact, Gauff coming through in the third set 6-1. Badosa had a winning record over Coco Gauff coming into this one, and sort of thrashed her, I think, the last time they played in Madrid last year. But Coco Gauff getting this one done. Nevertheless, Badosa, good week for her. She's still outside the top 100, but some positive wins, and off the back of that breakup, maybe seems to have done her the world of good.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to see, and it's great to see these being 3-set wins, because we're always talking about her fitness. We're always worried about how match fit she is. And with so many withdrawals from draws and retiring through matches, you just thought maybe she wouldn't be able to play at this level and complete a tournament like this. It's been so long since she's had a good run where it's ended in a being beaten as opposed to having to withdraw. So I think lots of positives. I think from a Coco Gauff perspective, she's finding a way to win. She really is winning ugly, because 11 double faults in this one.
She got bageled by Christian as well.
Yeah, and 37% of first serves in.
Ugly.
These numbers are really off, and it's credit to her that she's able to find a way to get through, but it does feel like the serve at the moment isn't getting it done in the way that she normally has got it done, or there isn't the confidence behind it, because I think Badosa's obviously playing a lot better, and maybe some of the opponents she's playing are really elevating their game to play against her, but Coco Gauff is probably, again, not necessarily coming into the French Open in the form that she would like.
No, it's quite interesting, actually, because Coco Gauff, although she's like the top seeded American player, you'd arguably say that Danielle Collins and Madison Keys are probably the most in-form female Americans on the clay at the moment. Yeah,
Madison Keys. Yeah,
Danielle Collins.
I think she's playing at the moment against Begu. She's about to bagel Begu. But Madison Keys coming through. I know, that kind of rhymes.
Begu,
Madison Keys came through against Sorana Castella very comfortably today, 6-2, 6-1. The most interesting thing, I think, from that match was that it was suspended because of protests. There were some climate activists coming onto the court when Keys was kind of a set and a break up. They, wearing orange vests, ran onto the court, threw confetti, and some of them glued themselves to the stand before the police and firefighters came along to take them away. Now, very interesting here. We haven't had a protest disrupt tennis in a little while, but fortunately, the jigsaws are safe. There were no jigsaws involved in this one.
Really surprising. I think of all the matches, I'm always a little bit surprised, because a doubles match isn't normally the one that's going to get the most impact or camera time. So I'm thinking these protests and activists...
Who is picking these moments?
I'm not sure, but the strategy is a little off, because I'm not encouraging them to go for more high-profile matches, but... if you want to get some eyes on your course, I'm not sure that the doubles match between, Pavic and Gonzalez is going to be the one that gets the most attention.
Yeah, there are two courts that they sort of attacked. But yeah, I guess it's sort of, we've seen these sort of protests before. We had one at Wimbledon last year with the jigsaws. So fortunately, no one was hurt, and it was, fine in that sense of the word. And they weren't,
didn't throw the water bottle.
There were no water bottles
confirm.
thrown in this instance. So
all of this stuff that is going on in the women's draw, is this all just leading to Swiatek versus Sabalenka part 2? We had it in Madrid. Are we just sort of expecting it more as a formality? Rybakina pulled out due to illness. Is there anyone in the draw, do you think, that is going to upset part 2 of Sabalenka Swiatek in Rome?
Danielle Collins?
I think Collins, with like minds, Kim, there. I think I'm fascinated to see if Svitolina can finally regain some of that form that she had from Australia, because I was picking her to win that title, and since then I think there's obviously been some injuries. It's been tough, to get back into the fitness for her, and it will be a really interesting one, because Sabalenka, she's playing well. She's playing well in big matches, but she was coming from behind against volley nets in the second round. It should have been in the first round. So That'll be interesting to see because that's a real test. And I think that Svitolina plays really well in Rome. She's won here before. But in answer to your question, do I think we're going to get a repeat of the final? Most likely, yes.
Well, let's see what happens. Let's take a very quick break now from talking about Rome. We'll be back in the second half, though, to discuss Dominic Thiem sadly announcing that this will be his last season on tour. Andy Murray returning earlier than expected. And we'll be looking ahead as well just to the second week of the Italian Open in Rome. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. And now we're going to move on to, drum roll please, I have a mysterious player for Joel and Chris and our listeners. So bringing back mysterious player for the first time in a while. And
are we playing together? No, we're not, are we?
Are we facing off? I think we might be, you know.
I think we took it in turns with you guys to have a guess. Yeah. So decide amongst yourselves who's going first, and I shall prepare my clues.
And how many clues do we have? We want to get it as soon as possible,
I've got a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're sort of rediscovering the rules because we haven't played this one for so long.
Well, I think you'll get it.
Nine clues.
The ninth, the latter one.
I'm hoping we get it before then.
I'm hoping we get it before 9, Joel.
Simple.
Yeah. If so, this might be a very long episode, listeners. We can only apologise if you listen to us getting it wrong. That would be
Well, I'm not starting with
18
someone's
times.
Birthday because I know, Chris, you seem to know every player's birthdays off by heart.
Okay.
No. Okay, right. Ready to begin, everyone? Cool. So, clue number 1. My career high singles ranking is 76 on the WTA tour.
You've done another Roman Safulin. Who would like to go first?
Chris, I'm going to let you go first. Because I'm struggling for a name at the moment.
74. I'm going to say Harriet Dart.
Incorrect. Okay, next one. My best.
Whoa!
Oh, sorry.
What?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, does Joel not get a go?
Kim,
Sorry,
I
didn't mean to
can't take off
silence
that
you.
easily. Sasha Vickery.
Incorrect. Right, next clue. My best Grand Slam result has been reaching the 3rd round of Wimbledon. Don't worry, the clues do get easier, but I don't want to make them too easy too soon.
I think I know who it is.
I don't want to say. I'm going to stick with the British theme, and I'm going to say Melanie South.
No, it's not, sadly.
I just don't know how you think, Kim. I really don't.
Is it Harmony Tan?
That is a great shout because she had that match of Serena, didn't she? But it's not.
That is a
sadly.
good guess.
Oh, I thought I had you. I had you. Okay.
Right, I'm bringing out the birthday. I was born on the 1st of April, 1978.
I think what you've done, and I don't want to help Joel, but I think we might need to save embarrassment for the podcast in general. I think it might be a double specialist who had a little go at the singles. So, who do I think this could be? I'm just gonna have to guess someone at this point. What about one of the Chan sisters? Letitia Chan.
Nice try, but no, it's not.
Oh, this is so tough. I keep thinking about American players, and I don't think this is right. And I know it's not right. Melanie Udan.
Just going through all the melodies, Melanie's even. No, it's not. Sadly.
Also, they need to be retired. I don't know why I've done this too.
Udan,
Letitia
it's
Chan's
not
very much not
46.
the age.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time.
Okay.
I only had one round of bad maths.
I
Right, come on.
won
This is
0
tough.
career singles titles and retired before my time with an injury, but I have found success in another area of tennis.
I believe it might be Mirka Federer.
Was Joel along those lines at all?
Absolutely not.
Is that your final answer, Chris? Yes, it is Mirka Federer.
Oh, wow. Yes. Love it.
My other clues were way too obvious, such as I represented my country in the Olympics in Sydney. I have 4 children, including 2 sets of twins, and I have managed the career of one of the greatest male tennis players of all time. And I can often be found in the player box on telly, or used to be.
So you definitely kind of when you did start giving
that's
clues,
why I had
you
to
gave
start
it all
tough
up immediately.
because there's only so much you can say that doesn't really make it obvious.
Kim, the only clue that I was going to get that off was going to be like, Zendaya used me as inspiration for the Challengers film.
Yes, because we did mention Mirka last week, of course. And I decided to pick a Swiss player in honour of the Switzerland winning Eurovision. And Mirka was my choice. So, listeners, let us know how you got on with that one. And,
probably better than us.
More better than you,
Letitia
Dad.
Chan.
Some
She's definitely
names,
in her
being
30s.
dragged out there that we haven't heard in a while. So, but well done.
At least we did get all of the questions before we got it right, Joel. Team effort.
Exactly.
Let's dip into the Tennis Weekly mailbag now, because we have a question from Lucy, who emailed us to ask us an interesting question about podcasts. So Lucy said, "Hello, Tennis Weekly team. I've noticed an emerging trend on the WTA Tour that players are trying their hand at being podcasters. Sloane Stephens has just dropped her podcast, Sincerely Sloane, whilst Caroline Garcia and Victoria Azarenka have also gone down similar paths. Why do you think we are seeing this, particularly on the WTA Tour? And do you think it's a good idea to pursue a podcast whilst being a full-time professional tennis player?" So, yes, a lot of food for thought there. I have also noticed this trend myself. Chris, what do you think is behind this current trend we're seeing?
I think it's probably the Garcia Tennis Insiders Club and Sincerely Sloane. I think it's coming from the perspective of not saying that these players are at the end of their career, but thinking about how they're able to maximize what they do and what their brand value will be, and how they'll be able to continue on after tennis. So I think it's very positive in that respect. I obviously love Sloane Stephens, and we're big fans of Caroline Garcia, and I think that it is good where there's something different that's being offered, and she's looking at different stories and perspectives and routines that help us show up at our best. So I think it's very much about kind of the different ways that we're able to perform at our best, whatever that may be. And she introduces herself on that as being kind of a parent, as well as being like a wife, and it's not just all about tennis. So I think that's much more from a lifestyle perspective, whereas Garcia's is obviously going much more from the Tennis Insiders Club and getting lots of players involved, such as Rublev was on recently, which is great because that's access that fans want. So I think it's probably looking at where you are in your career and trying to think about what you could be doing to maximize the value that you can, because maybe the WTA aren't going to be paying you enough on the tour. But I think this year there's been a real boom. Like Roddick's got one as well. There's new broadcasters bringing them out. So I think all competition is good competition, and probably the only one I'll be listening to will be Sincerely Sloane, because, I want to know about a routine that brings me success.
Yeah, I mean, I have subscribed to Caroline Garcia's Tennis Insider Club, but I am yet to listen.
Kim, how dare you?
To an
Joel.
episode.
What's going on?
Of course.
Have you subscribed to Tennis Weekly?
Do you think we've started the trend and they just all aspiring to follow our path?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, it does, I think, show that, podcasts, they're very accessible. You can very easily kind of get up and go and start one tomorrow.
Or anywhere on the tour.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the lifestyle that they have is very interesting naturally, and people want to hear, I think, more about that. And I think tennis players, particularly on the WTA Tour, I think they see themselves as role models, and one way of amplifying their message in a very practical way whilst being on tour is through a podcast. So I think that's one of the reasons we see it. I think maybe there's also a bit of, I think it's a healthy distraction, to have something that is constructive alongside your day job, almost as your side hustle. I think can be healthy. So you're not just kind of obsessing over perhaps one thing. I think that maybe depends on the type of character you are, but I certainly think there's some advantages, and I don't think they're necessarily going into it thinking I want to have tennis podcast domination on their minds. I think they're just looking at it as a relaxing outlet that they enjoy, have fun at, and can be a creative avenue for them.
We got a lot of pundits that have retired from the men's side who have podcasts, so I do think it's quite nice to have fresh female perspective and in a pretty male-dominated area when you see a lot of the partnerships, a lot of them are all male. Obviously, we're a trio here, but I think it's good to get different perspectives, especially from, the two players in question are very experienced tennis players who've been doing this for a long time and very accomplished. So I think it's nice to hear that take.
Yeah, I think it's nice that they're A, current players, and B, as female players, it's like taking back a bit of agency about how they can control the media narrative. And I think especially when it's player-on-player interviews, that's quite a new thing. And I wonder if traditional broadcasters might be not quaking in their boots, but thinking, well, actually, yeah, but this is adding something extra, isn't it? It's adding extra value that they can't necessarily provide. So I think I will definitely check out Garcia's podcast. I just haven't had the time.
One thing we should say, though, Kim, it's a couple. She's doing it with her partner.
Yes, that is true. Borgia.
And if the relationship breaks down, a la Sitsadosa, will the podcast continue?
I just hope there's no phone calls
That's
being made to Kim to come join.
Maybe they'll interview Tennis Weekly as one of their specials.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Caro and Kim. Do you know what annoying me? It's catchy. That's sort of what's annoying me, just thinking about it. But yeah.
Caro and Kim.
Wait, we need to move on. I feel like it's in Kim's head now. Yeah,
Sorry.
we need to move on.
We're
Kim,
plugging
move on.
other people's podcasts.
I was just thinking it sounded a bit like a coffee shop as well. But anyway, let's move on. Thank you, Lucy, for your question. Let's move on to some of the announcements from the past week, and unfortunately a lot of them are based on people retiring. We've had Dominic Thiem and also Camila Giorgi. Dominic Thiem hasn't just retired just yet, but he is going to be finishing his career at the end of this season. He released a statement on Instagram to let us know that this is going to be happening. Of course, he mentioned his wrist, that it's obviously not the way it should be and not how he wants it to be. And just has mentioned that it's his inner feeling, and he's been thinking about this decision for a very long time. We did think that this was going to be the announcement when you and when Alina was in Buenos Aires.
Yes.
When you were in Estoril, that was it.
When we were in Estoril.
And it wasn't, but obviously it has now come. Yeah, what do you make of this? Not a total surprise?
No, not a surprise at all. I think the way that this is worded and the way that people on the tour that I've spoken to have been talking about Thiem, it's almost like he's been sort of very slowly walking towards the end. That maybe mentally he has sort of checked out from thinking he is the competitor that he once was, which therefore makes it very tough on the tour, because you might not be there, you might not be getting the results, and it might not be as enjoyable. So I think it's a good move. I think he still is in no way kind of dragging out his career longer than it has to. I think he did give it a good go. I think he's tried to get himself back up to the top. He's had some very memorable matches since that US Open triumph, and I think it is the right move. I think having a final season, I thought maybe he'd retire in Vienna this year. I think that was the big talk that was on Twitter, that would have been released to journalists. But I hope we get to see him again. We shared a court with him. Alina was on court with him. And I hope we get to speak to him maybe at a UTS event or at another grass court event this summer, and that his ranking is high enough and that he will get the wild cards. But one question I have, is this an announcing your retirement before you actually end your career, like a Diego Schwartzman, for example? Is it just to secure wild cards? That's my question, because he wasn't getting them necessarily as direct entrance.
Yeah, yes. I mean, that's an interesting thought, because it's now like the farewell tour for Dominic Thiem, and I think he does deserve that. He's got fans worldwide. he's been a massive credit to tennis over the years he's endeavoured, and he has been one of the the hardest workers. Thinking back to when he was at his peak, he really was a force to be reckoned with. And a question I wanted to ask you both is, what do you think? What legacy do you think he leaves to tennis? And looking back on ultimately his achievements, there's a part of me that is happy that he got to fulfill winning, a Grand Slam title. He did that against Sasha Zverev at the US Open. But how many Grand Slams do you think that this injury and this curtailment of his career do you think ultimately robbed him of? Do you think, there was more there that could have been there for the taking if he had stayed healthy? Or are you just kind of happy that, he's actually managed to get to that Everest before he's hanging up his racket?
Oh, Kim, you go first. I'm not sure
what are you going to say then? My overarching memory is his prowess on a clay court, and the challenge he gave to both Rafa and Novak at Roland Garros. He was a 2-time finalist at Roland Garros, and I remember some very difficult matches, and I just thought he was like the natural heir to that title.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest shame for me, is that he will never get to fulfill that. However, of course, winning the US Open, not the slam we thought he might win, but it's a slam all the same. And, he did, did his absolute best to get that one, and totally deserve that title. But yeah, I think for me,
do you think he would have won any more?
But would he have even won the US Open if Djokovic hadn't have been disqualified?
Oh, it was that year, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was probably one of, and Nadal didn't play it. It was one of probably the worst finals of a slam I've ever seen. It was the one where Zverev and Thiem were in a tug of war of who's not going to bottle it. So I think, as you say, like, my memories of Thiem and the positive side of things is the fact that he was pushing these players on clay, and it really was the Prince of Clay. I think some people called him at some times, and those were the epics, I think, and those finals. So for me, that one has an asterisk next to it. But I do think I would have loved him see him after that point reach later stages of clay tournaments, and that's what he was robbed of. Really, is building on the success that he had. All
in all, though, it was a solid career, quite a short career.
And we love him. We do.
It's so hard not to be downbeat in these moments, but he's had a fantastic career, and I almost sometimes think he's a little bit the situation we find him in. It's a victim of the effort and the energy that he put in, because I also think of him as an absolute workhorse in the sense of the number of tournaments that he would play regularly. Yeah, like his training blocks as well. I just remember, like, he just put his heart and soul into tennis, and maybe he did push himself too past the limit that has ultimately ended his career early. So maybe there is a word of warning there, that if you do try and go through the rigour of tennis, going week in, week out over years and years, maybe not considering your schedule as much as maybe you should, this could be a situation you might find yourself in.
Or play with a double-handed backhand. Who knows?
Yes. Well, Dominic Thiem still has a couple of months left on the tour, but one player that doesn't is Camila Giorgi, because this is a retirement that we didn't see coming, but she's announced it formally on her Instagram, and I did not know this was going to happen. I thought, oh, have I missed something? But there's rumours that the reason for this sudden retirement is because she's got herself into some tax problems, and that her family are on the run. I mean, this sounds like a movie.
This needs to be Netflix. This needs to be Netflix documentary. This is Netflix documentary material.
Absolutely, and I was very shocked because the way this news broke, as you say, was that she registered her retirement on the ITIA website, which therefore means that you will not be tested, and that you are no longer competing. So that's just where you just register it. But that's not necessarily the way that most players go out. As you've seen from a Dominic Thiem, we got an announcement before the retirement announcement, before the tour, before his retirement. So this is almost like
it's an Irish goodbye.
Exit through the back door in some ways.
An Irish exit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Italian exit in this case, but it is very, Very strange because she hadn't been playing much on the tour recently, and she hadn't really been not in form. She took out Katie Bolter in the year just after that San Diego win. So she's obviously still able to play tennis, and I thought she'd probably would be playing the grass court season, definitely, because great results on their fast-paced game. But, I mean, the headlines have been wild. There's this tax thing. Apparently she's quitting to pursue a life as a lingerie model, was what the Daily Mail was saying. So whatever's going on,
I mean,
now,
or allegedly in the United States.
They believe she's left because of a tax issue, which we have not alleged. This is all alleged. But I mean, it did feel strange the way it was registered, and it did kind of make us question this.
Well, I feel like there's
odd,
more to come,
doesn't it?
If you're going to be a lingerie
More
model,
to come,
you don't
TBC.
have to sort of register your tennis retirement. Couldn't you sort of do it on the side and maybe do both? But she did say...
Or a podcast. She's going to retire to be a podcaster.
She did
on
say
tax.
there have been many inaccurate rumours about my future plans. So I look forward to providing more information about exciting opportunities ahead. So watch this space. I mean, regardless of the reasons, looking back at her career, I suppose the biggest title she won was the 2021 Canadian Open, which was a Masters level event. She reached the quarterfinals at Wimbledon in 2018, career high of number 26. What do you think her lasting legacy will be on tennis?
Nothing to do with tennis achievements, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think it's fashion. I loved her interviews at post matches where she just seemingly is disinterested in tennis, wants to talk about other things. And although she is a very talented player, I think I remember her more for her kind of off-court antics and kind of focus on fashion more than what she did on the court.
I think I love the attitude of you're gonna smack it, it's gonna be in or it's gonna be out, and I think there's something makes it very dangerous and entertaining to watch. A dangerous floater will be my overarching memory. A nightmare round one draw.
I think that's a wise, that's quite a nice, accurate way of putting it. I think I can't disagree with that. But we'll see if anything further emerges on the reasons for that. But let's talk about players that are, another player that is due to retire soon, but has a bit left in him, hopefully yet. Andy Murray, he's announced this week that he's going to be returning from his injury layoff in Geneva before the French Open. He's taken a wild card into the event just the week before Roland Garros. Which is surprising because I kind of assumed he was just going to miss the clay season. He's only played it once since 2020. Wimbledon. So what do you make of this news? Are you happy, Joel, that he's coming back sooner?
I'm elated. I think I was surprised more than anything, to be honest, because I genuinely didn't think. I thought Wimbledon was 50-50. It just didn't look great when that injury happened. But the fact that he's motivated, he's come back, and it sounds like he's trying new things in his training camp as well, because it sounds like he's going to be... He's been trialling a Yonex racket, which is very interesting. So,
do you think it's lighter? Might be lighter for him, or better suited for his wrist? Could be.
Yeah. So, I'm looking forward to it, and it's nice. I think that he is being able to do the send off. It looks like on his terms, because he's quite clearly wanting to play, Roland Garros, regardless of injuries and his body and whatnot. So to see him back and being able to do that, given the sights that we saw him in like a month ago, I think is a very good result.
And fingers crossed, Kim, we get to see him in Paris. I feel like he could be on our court. Susan Lonlon, there's definitely a chance. Might not be a Chatrier fixture, given the fact he doesn't necessarily play that regularly there, and they'd love to put a French player on Chatrier.
We'll see. It would be nice to see him before he does go off. But we wish him well with his return. It'd be nice that he's playing a bit on the clay. Talking of clay, let's go back quickly to week 2 of the Italian Open. I think some of our predictions are still in the draws, potentially.
Not our champions.
Not our champions.
Not on the men's side, anyway.
We had Djokovic and Ruud on the men's, and they are both a goner. But Swiatek, we did have a clean sweep for her, and she's still going strong. Let's look at tomorrow. Zverev's in action. Tabilo is in action again. Will he be able to back up his win over Djokovic? We've got Goff against Zheng, Swiatek Keys, Tsitsipas de Minaur, Fritz Dimitrov. So lots happening still. Some potentially cracking matches still lined up for Rome. Any lasting predictions you want to make for the rest of the week before we leave our listeners for this episode?
Come on, Taylor Fritz.
Clayla Fritz, you mean?
I might say, what about Clayla Fritz? Yeah, I'm thinking maybe Qinwen Zheng might be able to produce something. That's going to be the only thing I'm going to say, because the more I say, the more incriminating it is.
Yes. Well, on that note, we'll be back next week to round up what does actually happen. Let's hope no one else gets accosted by a water bottle, and let's hope there's no more protests, and let's hope the tennis can carry on smoothly for the rest of the tournament.
Yes, exactly. Looking forward to all of that. But for now, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from the ATP and WTA tours.
We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then do make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X. And the handle for all of those is Tennis Weekly Pod. You can purchase Tennis Weekly merch at etsy.com/shop/tennisweeklypodcast. You can email the show, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next week at Tennis Weekly HQ, so I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.